Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Justy.
And together we're losing it.
We both lost over 100 pounds by developing healthy habits.
And I also had weight loss surgery and used a GLP-1 medication.
And I used a GLP-1 medication and had skin removal surgery.
We're really passionate about helping people learn to live a healthy lifestyle by sharing our experiences.
But we're not doctors, so if you have questions, reach out to your medical team. And you may see our mascot Sancho pop up from time to time.
And all three of us hope that you find our content useful.
All right, welcome back, friends. We are here today with a guest, which has been a long time coming because she has recently had a baby. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But we have the lovely sleep dietitian, Jamie Mills, on today. We brought her on because in Justy and I, if you followed us, you know that we talk a lot about just different things. Like we've been doing body scans. We've been talking about like what the heck should our macros be? Like I don't know, we count, we track, but we don't know if we're in the right neighborhood. We know we're hitting that number, but is it the right number? And so that and the body scan thing came up together. And I was like, I don't know, we got to bring somebody on. And then the first person I thought of was Jamie because I follow her a lot and I see the things that she posts and the things that she talks about. And being a dietitian and having had the sleeve, I knew that she was the right person for us. So that being said, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Jamie, because I know I won't do you any justice, but I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll just kick off in the conversation.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about these topics today. But for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Jamie. I am a registered dietitian and I specialize in bariatric surgery as well as GLP-1 medications. And I have had surgery and have been on GLP-1 medications. So I had the VSG back in 2017. So coming up on 7 years, which is wild. There's been lots of ups and downs since then. I've experienced so many different things on this journey. But kind of fast forwarding to now, year and a half ago, between surgery and being on Manjaro for a year, I had hit my lowest weight. I had also achieved my leanest body composition. So while I was at a low weight, I had completely changed my body comp in that year, which is really challenging being on a GLP-1 because when you're going through extreme weight loss again, you tend to lose muscle and fat. But I was determined not to let that happen. So it was really cool. And we'll talk more about this when we get to the scan piece of this, but my fat mass had gone down and my muscle had actually increased. So I was feeling the best I'd ever felt physically, mentally, emotionally. And then I got pregnant. We decided to start trying for a family, and I was fortunate enough to get pregnant relatively soon after we started trying, which for someone who's had PCOS her whole life and was diagnosed at 14, I never thought that'd even be possible. But I really believe between all of the changes to my health, weight loss, all of those things that I had worked on for all those years, really made an impact on that. And then unfortunately, I had a really hard pregnancy, which I wasn't expecting because I was the healthiest I'd ever been going into it. I ended up with something called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is a really fancy term for excessive nausea and vomiting the entire pregnancy. So that was really, really fun. It was actually out of all the hard things I've done in my life, that was the hardest. This last year has been really challenging, especially when I was pregnant. I was incredibly sick. I had severe food aversions. I thought I was going to be that cute pregnant girly at the gym, like still doing my thing, and I couldn't even get out of bed. Along with that, I developed antenatal depression. So I didn't know this was a thing, but antenatal depression is basically postpartum depression while you're pregnant. So on top of being violently ill the whole time, I was very depressed. And despite being sick, I somehow still managed to gain 70 pounds while pregnant, which is largely because there was like 3 or 4 things I could tolerate, and it was all high carb, high sugar, and I wasn't able to move. And my body was not liking me at that time. So here I am now. I am 4 months postpartum. I am back to my normal eating routine. Thank goodness things don't make me sick anymore. Thank goodness those aversions are gone. I've been back at I do CrossFit. That's been a huge part of my journey too. As soon as I was cleared at 6 weeks, I've eased back into it and just, go full force. But trying to get back into a routine, really challenging. I was just sharing with Steph and Justy that my baby is 4 months going on 5 months and has had a really tough time with sleep the last few weeks. So we are surviving, not thriving. I'm down about 25 pounds of what I had gained so far, though. I am back on a GLP-1, so slow and steady is kind of where we're at right now. But I'm back after all this work. I'm back on a weight loss journey too because life happens. So that's just, a little backstory and where I am now.
You want to know what? You said you're back on a weight loss journey, and yes, but at the same time, it never stops. It's just the
100%.
journey never ends. Like it's
I
just
think
it's like a
it
roller
was so
coaster.
it was so strange because after, losing, because I had gotten to my previous lowest weight about 2 years post weight loss, or about a year post weight loss surgery, maintained it for almost 2 years. And then despite still sticking with my routine, I started to slowly gain a little bit. And I really believe, I've talked about this before, I believe it was really related to the PCOS because I had some switches in birth control. And with that came like this, it wasn't a rapid regain really, but it just kept trickling up. And I was up about 25 pounds, which in the grand scheme of things, after losing 112 is not that much, but I wanted to really nip it in the bud. So that's when I decided to go on a GLP-1. And then I proceeded to lose almost 50 pounds. So I surpassed that previous lowest weight, worked on the body comp. So I'd finally gotten to this place after ups and downs, lots of therapy, lots of mindset work, really being diligent with like training. And I was like, wow, like the goal isn't weight loss right now. Like I had a good period of time that year where I wasn't even trying to lose weight. I was just trying to gain muscle, which is a very different mindset. So when I say like I was, I'm back on a weight loss journey, it's like I had been, I was able to live in that place where weight loss was no longer the focus. And it was beautiful and wonderful. And I'm, I don't even want to say unfortunately because I feel more confident this time around because I know I can do it. I've proven that many times. It just feels a little overwhelming some days when you're like, wow, I have to do this again. And I think it is a
Yeah.
reminder that this journey never ends and obesity is a lifelong disease and battle.
Now, do
Yeah.
you think that
Oh, go ahead.
you, so when you went off the GLP-1s, was that due to your pregnancy or were you off it before you got pregnant?
So I had to wean off of it before I got pregnant.
Gotcha.
So you GLP-1s are not approved for pregnancy or breastfeeding. So I've gotten that question a lot. I am not breastfeeding my son, which is why I was able to go back on it postpartum. But so the way the GLP-1s work, for anyone who doesn't know, and I don't know if you guys have spoken about this before on the podcast, but you titrate up in dosage. So
Right.
I was on Manjaro at the time. I had titrated up. I think I had hit like the 10 milligram dose for like 1 month, and then we titrated back down. So I was at like the lowest dose, and then I came off and was off for about 2 months before getting pregnant. So even in those months leading up, I had lowered the dose, but then we had also spaced it out. So I was on the lowest dose like 2 weeks apart. So it was not so hard on my body to come off. Um, and my body didn't really start gaining weight during pregnancy till like the latter half. So I mean, it's hard to tell because I was pregnant and sick and who knows, like I had a lot of variables there, but I didn't experience like rapid regain coming off the GLP-1. And I think a huge part of that is the strength training I did and body composition changes I made, as well as the way me and my doctors work to strategically come down on it versus abruptly stopping. Because it wasn't until I was about halfway through my pregnancy that I started to have more of that weight gain. And again, many variables. I was very, very sick my whole pregnancy, especially the first trimester. So I wasn't gaining weight at that time.
Yeah, and both Justy and I took Manjaro. Justy took it for less time than I did. I didn't, well, I never went up past the 7.5, but I didn't step down at all. I just came off of it. And I think I might have had a hard time getting the 7.5 and I might have had five. I can't remember now. But then I might have given the rest of my fives to Justy because
Yeah,
couldn't
because
get
I
it
only went
anymore
to
either.
5.
Right. And I just wanted to stop because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it anymore. So I was like, I'm just going to stop taking it because I surpassed where I had been before. I surpassed where I wanted to be. And I was like, I have to just stop because I don't want to keep going. And I also know I'm not going to be able to get it anymore because it was kind of in that time when you and I had really started speaking then, when it was kind of controversial. And I started taking it before people really knew much about it. And I was
So did
like,
I. So I
my
started,
doctor, yeah,
so
my
I,
doctor offered it to me in September of 2022. I think,
yeah, so
yeah, 2022.
I started it in like I think July or August of 2022. And I
Hmm.
remember being one of the first people with a larger platform in our community to come out and speak about it.
Hmm.
I have never gotten, I don't know if I can swear on here, but I have never
Yes.
gotten so much shit from
Yeah.
people in my life, which is crazy because everyone loves to tell you like it's the easy way out with surgery, but these GLP-1 medications have been like shaking people up since they've gotten a lot of media attention. The reason I ended up going on one is because in June of 2022, I actually attended the ASMBS conference of the American Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery. I attended it professionally as a dietitian and I sat in on all the seminars. I got continuing education credits. Um, and I remember sitting in on one of the seminars and it was run by surgeons and a dietitian specifically was speaking. And I remember her saying, what do you do when your patients regain? Not if, when, because they're all going to regain at least some. And that whole presentation was so validating because here I was sitting there with my own 25 pounds of regain, feeling like a failure in many aspects, especially as a dietitian in this community, feeling like spinning my wheels, doing all the things, going to CrossFit, planning my meals, like, and it just wasn't budging. So it was very validating, especially because they continued to reiterate, like, this is a disease, it is a long-term disease. And the whole presentation talked about GLP-1s because they were pretty up and I want to say they were up and coming in mainstream media. They were already making waves in the bariatric space and treatment of obesity for many years before, the media really took hold of this. But it was after that I sought out some care and I decided to get on one. I was really scared and anxious, but it was life-changing for me. And I've been such an advocate for them ever since. And it was, but back to what I was saying, I came on and talked about it. I got so much hate. And what's wild is I got so much hate from other bariatric patients. It was other bariatric patients being like, well, you must not be using your tool right, or you just want another quick fix, or if you actually put in the work, you wouldn't be here. And I had a lot of people criticizing my abilities as a dietitian too. Like, how are you a dietitian and you're promoting this? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm a bariatric dietitian. I've always supported medical interventions for weight loss. Like, it was
Right.
just crazy because the nastiest comments and the most backhanded comments were from other bariatric patients. And that was incredibly discouraging, especially
Yeah.
coming from this community that I love and trust. And yes, I work in this space, but I've also shared my own journey and made my own friendships and connections just as much as anybody else. So like that was really sucky.
Yeah. And if you've taken one, anyone who has taken one, and Justy knows because she's like, I kind of just want to feel what it's like. And I thought the same because I was telling her, I'm like, I don't have the thought that like there's cookies in the kitchen. I could just go grab a cookie. I didn't even think about it. It was
It
never a
hit me
thought.
like
I just
three
went
days.
about my day.
It hit me like 3 days into being on Manjaro for the first time because I remember I grabbed like three Oreos or something. And I ate one and forgot about the other two and just got up and walked away and completely forgot they were even there. I was like,
Right.
Yeah.
in what world am I
Right.
forgetting that I left two cookies behind?
Right.
Now my experience with Manjaro was a little bit different. Yes, it did shut off all that chatter that because I do still, years later, constantly think about food. And I was only on it for a short amount of time. I only went up to five, the 5 shot, and I lost like 8 pounds because I literally was on it for like what 4 or 5 months, I think. Um, but what I noticed for me was that I just wasn't hungry. And so I wasn't eating. So I didn't have the energy that I to put into my workouts that I had before. And so for me, it wasn't really, yes, that shutting that chatter off was awesome because I didn't have to think about food anymore. But I also didn't have the energy to live my life the way I like to live it with a lot of activity and lifting weights and muscle building like you talked about. And so figuring out how to balance that whole thing for
Oh,
me, I
one
just
of
it
the
was
100%. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making, and obviously one of our biggest concerns with these medications is the fact that people aren't eating enough. And
Mhm.
I've seen this happen a lot too, where, those of us who struggle with our weight have been consumed by thoughts about weight and food our whole lives. When that shuts off, there's almost
Mhm.
something, and this borders the line of disordered thinking, but there's almost this sense of empowerment of like, "Oh, I don't have to eat. I don't have to think about it. I
Yeah.
like, and we don't want to undereat." So I've actually been
Mhm.
trying to give a lot of education on this. I've been really focusing on my blog lately for some free resources. So maybe if you guys want to link that to the show notes later too, I have some really great blog posts talking about this, because even though it sucks to have to almost force yourself to eat, if you
Mhm.
don't eat enough on these medications, it's likely going to backfire in more ways than one. Because the goal, just like the goal with weight loss surgery, is not to eat as little as possible for as long as possible. That's not the goal with
Right.
these either. And if you make that your mission to just not eat because you don't have to, you're, yes, you might lose weight, but you're not just losing that fat mass, you're losing muscle mass. And this kind of segues into our main conversation today. But when you
Right.
muscle mass, having low muscle tone on your body makes it so much harder to maintain and sustain your weight loss long term, especially if you plan on coming off these medications. And under eating is going to affect your performance. It's going to affect your energy. And that's not what we want, but too often that's what we're seeing. So that's where, again, the lifestyle, people can say whatever they want about whatever tool is being the easy way out. At the end of the day, the lifestyle and mindset changes and shifts and habits will always be there and important, no matter what tool you're using. So,
Right.
yes, you can use these medications as a band-aid approach, just like you can with weight loss surgery, but it's not recommended. There are certain things we still have to do to make sure we're being really productive for our health and those outcomes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it
And
took me a little while to realize that too, to be honest, because after I did the same thing and I thought having surgery, I'm gonna have my stomach cut and I'm not gonna want to eat and not, I'm not gonna be able to eat as much in the end.
Mhm.
And that wasn't it at all. And I really, really, really wish that this community was just starting to come around. I think I had surgery in 2020 and it was just really starting to build and come around. And I just didn't know enough to know. I didn't educate myself enough and I didn't know enough to know. I'm like, finally, I had reached out for the help that I needed. And I just thought I was getting the help and I was done. I'm like, I don't care if it is the easy way out because I'm tired of this shit. So I'm going to do it either way. But it didn't
Mhm.
work that way because the weight started coming. I maintained for a while. I've always been active even before. And the weight just started coming back on. And I was like, this is so frustrating. So tail between the legs, go to the doctor, get end
Well,
up on Manjaro, which I didn't necessarily want to, but he kind of talked me into it. And then that's when it clicked. I feel like that second try at it is when it clicked. Like you still have to work out. You still have to, be mindful of what you're eating. And then that's when Justy and I got really heavy into meal prepping and I haven't stopped since. And I'm
Mhm.
maintaining in a sense, I'm within 20 pounds of my goal weight, which isn't terrible, but I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. So I feel like really good about that. That's the
yeah.
longest stretch that I've been able to
And
maintain in that range.
that's amazing. And almost no one is going to maintain at their lowest weight because it's usually not the healthiest. It can be,
Mhm.
like I said, when I was at my lowest after being on Manjaro, I truly believe that was incredibly healthy for me just because of my body composition. Looked vastly different than, when I was at my previous lowest. My previous lowest, which was higher than my after lowest, I guess, was actually not as healthy because I had no muscle mass on me. So it's, yeah, there's no there people, like I said, people can say whatever they want, but there really is no shortcut. And I do a lot of different like types of programs and coaching um options like for what I do for my business. And regardless of if you read my book, join one of my programs. Every single thing I teach always starts with mindset work. And I'm not a
Mhm.
therapist, nor do I claim to be. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I think we all need it. But working on our mindset and making those mindset shifts and changes is so essential. And I think it's like the number one thing that's missing. And I tell my clients literally every time I see them, we cannot solve an emotional issue with a nutritional solution. So you can have the best macros in the world, you can have the world's greatest meal prep, you can have everything planned to a T, but if you're not working on coping mechanisms, boundaries, self-sabotage, your, you know, self-esteem, how to speak to yourself kindly, how to make these small shifts, how to be consistent and flexible. If we're not working on those things, the plan's going to go out the window. We've all stuck to like a strict diet before. None of us have an issue sticking to a diet. We all know how to do that. We all know how to do the all or nothing, start again Monday. But it's how do we keep going for months and months and months on end and forever? That's the piece that we all need help with. And that's where, unfortunately, most bariatric centers don't have the bandwidth or the support to be able to provide that type of intervention to their patients. And that's where future work really needs to be focused on, I think.
Totally agree.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's kind of funny for me because I've been thinking about, I've had a lot of people ask me like, how do you stay on track or whatever? But I will be pretty honest, and it's pretty vain, the reason that I stay on track. Once I had my skin removal surgery, and I no longer, because I felt really depressed about my body and losing 100 pounds and how I looked and sagging and hanging and all the things. We all know about all that. Once I had my skin removal surgery, I am so in love with the way I look that I don't want to, A, I spend a shit ton of money, but B, I finally feel like my outside makes sense to my inside. My outside finally represents a strong, capable, energetic, resilient, sexy woman. And that is everything to me. If that,
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's like I don't even think it sounds vain. I think when we've struggled to like feel like our outside matches our inside our whole lives, because I relate to that. I've had 3 rounds of skin removal.
Okay.
Which I'm happy to report that even after pregnancy, everything is pretty much intact. I don't know
All
what
right.
happened, but like even though I'm much heavier than I was this time last year, like I still have I think like 45 pounds on me from like my lowest. Like it's like I'm bigger, but my stomach is still flat, which is nice.
Right.
So like, and I had my arms done and like a back lift, and none of that was like affected, which is nice. So I feel like so long as I'm still, working on the
Yeah.
building that muscle as I lose weight, it's not going to be like it was that first couple years after surgery because it's one, not going to be rapid. It's not right now. But 2, I've already had that skin removed. But I feel you on that because I was also really worried. I'm like, shoot, it's like I'm gaining more this pregnancy than I wanted to. Is this all going to be like ruined, quotation marks?
Right. Yes.
It hasn't.
Yes. And my pregnant days are well past me because I'm a grandma now, but that's not constantly what I think about, but when I go to the
Wait, I
gym.
have to just pause for a minute, and I know like we're not supposed to comment on people's like looks or whatever, but how in the hell are you a grandma? I feel like if you were like, I'm 30 years old, I'd be like, hi, you're 30 years old.
No, I'll be 48
No,
in a
we're
couple
48.
weeks.
Yeah, she'll be 48 in another 2
Well, for
weeks
what
or
it's worth,
week and a half.
my pregnancy days are long past me too. We are one and done family around here. Absolutely no more.
Yeah, thank you though. I do get that all the time. But so now that my skin is gone, right? And my struggle that I have, and this is why I wanted to talk to you, is that strength training aspect and fueling strength training, fueling body composition, and kind of talking about what that takes. And from a dietitian standpoint, and I know Steph is doing the same thing, we're both doing a lot more strength training. I always have done pretty hard strength training. But kind of, how do you figure that out? What works for each individual person? Because it's different.
Right. And
So
before you get into that, real quick, I was very heavy into running over the last few years because I thought, number one, I kind of like the competitive, like I'm trying to beat my time, and I like going to races. But then I was like, I just don't love running, but I thought that's what I needed, that cardio, that, for weight loss. And then I started really just more so liking weight training. And I knew from Manjaro that I had lost like muscle. I knew I did, even though I hadn't done any body scans at the time. So then I kind of flipped to doing more weight training, and I just feel different. I feel like I'm not losing weight, but I can feel like I'm stronger. I know by the weights that I'm putting on the bar that I'm stronger. And so I've kind of flipped that. Justy's always been more into like body pump and those types of class. We both love classes at the gym, but she's been more into that. So that's where this really, now we talk about it more and more, which is where you come in because we're like, A, how do we know how many calories we should be eating? And B, like the body scan thing, because I've done two, which we'll talk about when we get into that. My second one was skewed. Justy did hers and same results as you, where she lost body fat, increased muscle, which is the goal, but we're just trying to like dissect that as a whole. So that's kind of where we're headed with that. But yeah, weight training for me, I always did a little bit, but now I'm heavier into that.
And it's funny because I actually started off running too. It was actually my therapist had explained this to me because I've always had like really bad anxiety, and I didn't realize I had it until I was like being treated for it essentially. But I found that running, especially after weight loss surgery, was one of the best things I could have done for my anxiety. And she explained that the reason running is so effective for people with anxiety is because so running and kickboxing are two of the best things for anxiety, because when you are running or like doing like kickboxing type movements, your body is in that fight or flight mode. So like when you are anxious, your body perceives a threat even if there is none. So that anxiety, like your response is fight or flight. So if you are literally running or you are literally like doing some kickboxing movements, your body is physically like fleeing or fighting something, and it signals to your brain like you fought off or ran from the threat. So for anxiety management, it's actually those two exercises are wonderful. So I found that to be true for myself. Like my anxiety and my, anxious tendencies were so much less if I could get out, even if I didn't run particularly long or fast, even just like a mile here or there. That significantly helped me after weight loss surgery with my coping surrounding food, because I had a new coping strategy for my anxiety. But not to get off on a tangent, it's funny. So a lot of us do start off with that running, and some people love it long term. And one of the things I just want to interject and say, one of the questions I get asked a lot is like, Jamie, what's the best type of exercise for weight loss or for after weight loss surgery or whatever? And even though I'm not a personal trainer, what I tell my clients is the best exercise for weight loss or for after weight loss surgery is the one you're going to do consistently. So anyone listening to this, you certainly don't have to strength train. There's lots of reasons and benefits I think people should. But if running is the thing that you love and you do it consistently, or going for walks every day is the thing you do consistently. And also to interject, consistency doesn't mean every day. It just means you continue to go back to it. Because if we're going to talk about body comp changes, we actually don't want to be working out every day. There's some pieces to that too. But there is no like bad exercise. You just want to be doing something consistently that you can stick to, because if you hate and resent what you're doing, you're not going to stick to it. It's not going to benefit you anyways. So I just, for anyone listening to this who might be like, I don't think I ever want to strength train, maybe this conversation will change your mind, but also know you don't have to if that's not conducive to your lifestyle for consistency.
Right. Makes sense. So, okay. So then that being said, let's talk about, I don't know, what you think is best to get into, like the calorie and then lead into the body composition type of thing, or I don't know which is better, vice versa, but I know they tie to each other.
Yeah. So do you want me to just kind of dive in and start where I think?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about weight loss, especially extreme weight loss, like we've all been through, your body is going to lose both muscle and fat mass. So even if you're doing all the right things to maintain and preserve muscle mass on a weight loss surgery or an extreme weight loss journey, you will still lose both. It is almost impossible to lose 100 plus pounds and not lose some muscle mass. The goal is to lose minimal amounts of muscle mass and at the very least be able to rebuild it after. So for someone listening saying like, well, why does it matter? So for obvious reasons, we do want to lose fat mass because having extra adipose tissue, which is fat on your body, contributes to many different diseases. And if you're losing weight, you want the fat gone. Like Justy was saying, like even for vanity reasons, like you want to carry less of that on your body. Muscle, though, so a lot of people say like, well, muscle weighs more than fat. That's not true. The weight is the same. It's just more dense and compact. So someone who has more muscle tone and is heavier on this. So let's say, I'm going to give an example. And I don't want anyone taking these numbers to heart. It's literally just for the sake of an example. So let's say you have two people who are 150 pounds. One of them has, I'm not going to give like an exact number, but one of them has a lot of muscle mass. The other one does not. Let's just say they're the same height, same weight. Well, 150 pounds for someone who has very little muscle mass might be almost like double in size as someone who's 150 pounds and has a lot of muscle mass. So even though the weight is the same, the way the fat mass and muscle mass is distributed on your body will be different. This is why you can have two people who are the exact same height, exact same weight. But I mean, genetics play a role too, and that's a whole other conversation, right? But for the sake of this example, one of those people could be wearing a size 14 jean, the other one could be wearing a size 6. And it's like, well, how does that make sense? Well, the person who has more muscle tone is going to achieve a more, quote, leaner or toned look, which a lot of people are looking to achieve. And the way we do that is by having more muscle tone. So one of the things I do just want to touch on is, I know you had asked me about like the different scales. So if you are getting on just a regular old scale at home, that can be good for tracking trends as long as you're not obsessing over it. But all it's going to show you is that solid number. So again, if we have these two examples of these two people, both 150 pounds, it's not going to show you any difference if you're just looking at the overall weight. If you do something like an InBody or a DEXA scan, it's going to give you a more in-depth look at what's going on. So there are differences between InBody scans and DEXA scans, but both of them really look at body composition and different factors. So you're going to be able to see things. I don't think you can see bone density on InBody, but you can see fat mass, lean muscle mass, and water in your body on both of them. An InBody scan, you can usually find at like a local gym. I know my CrossFit gym has one. So you kind of stand on it and you can hold these two little handles. You have to get on it barefoot, and it sends like a little, like you don't feel anything, but like electrical currents essentially through your body where it gives you that breakdown. A DEXA scan is a little bit more invasive. I've actually never had one done, so I'm not entirely sure how it works. But I do know that it's a bit more in depth, a little more invasive, and tends to be more expensive, but sometimes insurance will cover it. So you're more likely to see a DEXA scan in like a medical setting, whereas an InBody scan you might see at a gym. Both, though, are really great, even though there are some limitations with the InBody, and the InBody scan can be affected by your hydration status. So if you go in and you're dehydrated, it won't be as accurate. But either way, it gives you a good baseline to see like what's underneath the surface. So it will show you, okay, this is my weight. This is how much water my body has. This is how much, lean muscle mass I have. This is how much fat mass. And even though, like I was saying before, I didn't really start to gain weight in my pregnancy till halfway through. This might be TMI, but like my first indicator that I might be pregnant, I was like, either I'm pregnant or I've got congestive heart failure. It's got to be one or the other, because I got on my InBody scan after 2 weeks and I was up like 9 pounds in water weight. Like, and it showed like, if I had just gotten on the scale at home and I was like, oh my God, I gained 9 pounds. Like, how did I put 9 pounds on? Well, the InBody scan let me see like, no, your fat and your muscle is the same. This is all water. And I remember I'm like, okay, so either I'm pregnant or like I'm massively retaining water and this is dangerous.
Well, real quick, and to that point, this is what happened with mine, which I did not know, and I wish they would have told me. So mine at my local gym, same thing. I did InBody. I just actually pulled it up. I did the first one, and then I've been like hitting the gym, and Justy's like, I'm so proud of you. You've been doing all these classes. You're doing great. And I was down like, I want to say like 8 pounds, and I went back and I could do it once a month through my gym. Went back in, did a body pump class, came over, had an appointment scheduled. I walked over to the room and I was talking to the guy. I'm like, sorry, I'm kind of sweaty. I just did a class. He's like, oh, what class? And we're chit-chatting about it. And I'm like, body pump. And I'm like, trying to take like my socks off to get on the scale. We go through it and he's looking at it. He's like, huh, this is weird. He's like, this doesn't make sense. And he's like, you lost weight, but gained fat, but you've been doing like 3 like strength training classes. He's like, none of this makes sense. He's like, you're not really supposed to do these after you work out. And I was like,
yeah. So
what? Like,
yeah,
why wouldn't you have told me that?
so it's best to get on it. Like, personally, I would, if you're gonna do an InBody scan, I would recommend doing it like similar. I mean, so whether you're using a regular scale or an InBody scale, you really should be consistent with time of day, which for most people, it's first thing in the morning after you use the bathroom before you've really eaten or drink anything. Which isn't always realistic if you're going somewhere else to do an InBody scan, which most of us are. But like for me, if I do InBody scans, I do it when I first get to the gym. I make sure like I've been adequately hydrated the day before. I don't let myself drink any coffee until after because that can affect it too. And just try and be consistent in that way. So that way, like you said, you're not like sweating or dehydrating yourself before. So
Mhm.
there are some things that can be inaccurate. So also, of course, always using that critical thinking ability is important. But it is nice to be able to look at trends and be able to say, oh, my fat mass is trending down, my muscle is trending up. So these different scales can show you more of what's going on, which I think is really, really helpful because so many of us, myself included, can get really discouraged by just the number on the scale.
Mhm.
To get on the scale and be like, oh my God, I've been working my ass off for the last 6 weeks and the scale is exactly the same. It's so infuriating, right? But if you get on maybe like an in-body scan, you might say, oh, my weight is the same, but my fat mass is down and my muscle mass is up. And as we know, muscle's more dense, so it's going to take up less space, so you might be leaner. So I actually haven't gotten on the in-body in like the last month or so. It's just been a crazy month. I'm back in CrossFit, I'm back at the gym, but it's just way less consistent because of my infant who doesn't let me sleep. And he's in charge of our routine around here, basically. So things are a little different for me this year. But I have a feeling when I get back on the in-body scan, because my weight has been pretty much the same the last handful of weeks, which again is frustrating. I'm on a GLP-1, I'm doing all the things, I'm trying to lose weight. Postpartum hormones are all over the place, so I know that's playing a role too. But this weekend, I put my jeans on. I had to get all new clothes postpartum because nothing from last year fits, having gained as much as I did. But one of the newer pairs of jeans I got to have something to wear postpartum, they're too big. And then for the first time since being pregnant, I was able to put my wedding rings on because between swelling and gaining weight, my rings didn't fit anymore. So I'm like, okay, the scale is not really showing me what I want, but I have a feeling if I do an in-body scan in the next week or two, it's probably going to show me some more insights because my jeans are fitting better, because my rings fit now, because like I'm noticing like in my reflection, like my face doesn't look as puffy. Like, so it's, I think for those of us, and I say those of us because I'm one of those people too who can get really discouraged by the number alone, actually having an in-body scan can be super, super helpful.
I would
Yeah.
agree. I did mine a year apart. Now I'm going to do it more often now, but I did mine a year apart and I'd gained 15 pounds in the year, but 12 pounds of it was muscle. And so to me, that was like a win. And I didn't feel that win throughout the whole year because I'm like, why am I gaining weight? Why am I gaining weight? Um, I just had my skin removal surgery at the end of September. And so I'm going back to the gym December 1st. And so I have one scheduled December 1st. So I'm going to take it and
So
I'm going
you
to do
just
it.
had your skin removal like 2 months ago, is that?
6 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will just say, expect some significant fluctuations for the next 6 to 9 months because
Oh yeah.
the swelling and like just fluid shifts like internally after having, skin removal is going to absolutely play a role. So it'll hopefully give you insight, but still try not to let that get you discouraged because your body is
Yes.
completely readjusting right now.
Well, and I quickly on numbers. So this is my second round. I went into my skin removal at 195 and I'm 205 now. Even though they remove skin and all that stuff, I'm just really swollen. And so I'm just trying to not let that get to me and I'm trying to stay off the scale. But yeah, I think the body scan for us who are especially at more of a maintenance or need to lose the 10 or 20 pounds, it's such a great thing to have. Because we are at the point where we're just not rapidly losing fat or whatever, we're really trying to compose our body into a certain way. And I'm really happy that my gym offers that. So
100%. And I would also like to make a suggestion for anyone who is like really working on body recomposition and is looking at these numbers and these trends. If possible, I would say try and get on the in-body every 2 to 4 weeks. Because
gotcha.
I think letting too much time pass makes it harder to see the trends because you want to be able to see like the little trending numbers like
Mm-hmm.
more frequently if this is something you want to like dive into and look at
Mm-hmm.
because it'll help you have a better idea of like, oh, this is something I did in the last 2 weeks and it resulted in this. So it
Right.
can help you like look at your whole routine a little bit better and have more insight to what's going on. So if you're like, oh, these last 2 weeks, I meal prepped this because this is kind of going to segue into like, how do I know what to eat and macros and
Yeah.
stuff? It will verify if what you're doing nutritionally and lifestyle is like working
Mm-hmm.
for whatever your goals are.
Mhm.
Yeah, I plan on doing it every month. My gym, when I get points, I can use those points towards the body scan. And so I feel like because I go enough, I accumulate enough every month. And I think Steph's gym does it every month for
Every
free,
month.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think some gyms might charge you. Like, I know if you're not, so anyone listening to this, if they're like, I don't go to a gym, or I work out at home, or my gym doesn't have one, call around. Because some, I know like my gym, at least what they were doing when they first got the InBody is you could do extra scans, or non-members could come do a scan and pay like $20 or something.
And
So
it's worth it.
yeah, and you might not want to do that like every 2 weeks, but like to keep up with it every month, it's probably worth the 25 bucks if you can. If that's at least at my gym, that's what I think they had charged, just to, get that data to see if your plan is working for you or against you.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, listening to you talking about the weight and, the two different people and their sizes and whatnot, my chef brain automatically went to, and Justy, I don't know if you
I
went
did
here or
the
not.
same thing. I
I
know
was
what you're
like,
gonna
oh, that's
say.
kind of like, especially with baking, like why you would weigh instead of measure your flour out, because the volume versus the weight is going to be different. So it's the volume of the
This is
muscle
why
versus
I'm
the
a terrible baker and ruin everything I try and make.
Well, and I was thinking it's like weighing a pound of chicken versus weighing a pound of marshmallows. Like they're just,
right.
I'm gonna have a big ass thing of marshmallows and a
100%.
tiny
That's
thing of
actually a really
chicken.
good analogy. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
the chicken is going to be mostly all like, protein or muscle. It's
muscle.
more
Yeah.
compact. It's just gonna look like way different.
Mhm.
Um,
Marshmallows to chicken, exactly. Some days I feel like a marshmallow, some days I feel like a chicken breast. So,
Exactly.
yep. Um, so yeah, so anyone who's like wondering like so there's another piece of this that I want to touch on too. So beyond just like looks and overall like aesthetics, which is fun, it is really cool to see those types of, non-skill victories. Like I remember when I was, at like my leanest, strongest before I got pregnant, like I was starting to do like cool, like what I call party tricks. Like for the first time, like at CrossFit, like I was working with my trainer at the time too, like how to do a handstand. Like we were working up to doing like a handstand and like pull-ups. I'm like, this is so cool. Now I feel like I'm starting completely over, but I know I'm capable of doing it. So what was I saying? I had a point to this. Oh, it's fun to be able to track like other benchmarks of success, like how Steph was saying, like I know I'm lifting heavier. Like it's really cool to be like, oh, I couldn't even get into this handstand position 2 months ago, but now I'm almost in a full handstand. It like shows you progress in different ways that can be really, really motivating beyond just, the number on the scale.
Right.
But in addition to the aesthetic piece of things, circling back to like why do we want more muscle tone on our bodies, whether you're on a GLP-1 and whether you're going through weight loss surgery or extreme weight loss, if you have more muscle tone on your body is going to more efficiently burn calories at rest. So our basal metabolic rate is the rate at which we burn calories when we aren't you know at rest, when we're not like working out or moving or anything. We want that number to be higher, because if your body is effectively burning more calories at rest, you can eat more without gaining. So for not just weight loss, but for sustaining weight loss long term, it's a really good idea to be strength training during your weight loss journey. Now, when you're rapidly losing weight, you're unlikely to be simultaneously gaining muscle, but at the very least, we want to be preserving it and then rebuilding it so we can get to that point, because you're going to be metabolically more healthy. Your metabolism is going to be running better. You're going to be more efficiently burning the foods that you're eating, because what happens is this especially happens after weight loss surgery. So let's picture that first year post-op. Most of us are not eating very much, even if we're eating high protein. Most people, and this varies for everyone, and I'm not saying this is what you should be eating, but most of us are eating somewhere between 800 and 1200 calories a day. That is very low, especially for someone, let's just say your starting weight is like 300 pounds. That is a severe calorie deficit. So you're going to be rapidly losing weight. You're losing that muscle, you're losing that fat. Well, what happens when you are a year and a half post-op, you can eat more and now you're hungry again. Someone might say like, but Jamie, I'm only eating 1300 calories. Like per, the calculator online that told me my calories and macros, like I'm still eating significantly less. Like that calorie counter told me I should be eating 2300 calories based on my weight. Well, yeah, maybe for the average person, but you have already been in a severe calorie deficit for so long. Anything above that 1,200 calorie marker at this point is more for you. Your metabolism is on the floor. Your metabolism is not burning things efficiently. You've just lost so much fat and muscle mass. You're you're not effectively burning those calories anymore. So to avoid getting to that place in the first place, I really wish more bariatric centers and surgeons and even dietitians were focusing less on overall weight loss and more on metabolic health and body comp changes. Because if we can get you eating more calories and still losing weight, that is actually the goal. Because you get to a point, let's say, again, you were eating 800 to like 1,000 calories a day for your whole weight loss journey. Now you're a year and a half post-op, you're eating 1,300 calories a day, you're gaining weight. You're like, what the hell? How much lower are you supposed to drop your calories? Like, are you supposed to drop them below 800 to get to that loss again? Please do not do that. Like, hell no. Like, we need to eat. But this is what happens. And this is one of the reasons so many people regain, because that is not sustainable. And in order to continue to get to a calorie deficit, you need to eat below what you were before because you had already set your benchmark so low. So hopefully those numbers kind of make sense, but that's what we see a lot of the time. So whether you are losing weight naturally after weight loss surgery, you're on a GLP-1, you don't want to be in these extreme calorie deficits long term, because maintaining that weight loss or losing any regain is going to be so much harder. So Justy, I know you had said, like, for whatever reason, we see bariatric patients, regaining more quickly or significantly than those of us who, haven't had surgery. And the reason for that is your portions were larger. So even though you were absolutely in a calorie deficit to hit those weight loss goals, you weren't in a severe calorie deficit. Now, this severe calorie deficit does naturally happen for most surgical patients because we can only eat so much without getting sick. But this is why, again, eating itty bitty, teeny tiny portions forever is not the goal. If you can eat more and still hit your weight loss goals, that is more desirable because you're more likely to maintain more muscle tone. You're more likely to be able to effectively burn those calories. So hopefully that makes sense, but I think that's a really important piece and motivation for maintaining some muscle mass, which I don't even know if I clearly said this before, but the way we're going to maintain muscle mass is eating adequately and strength training. So those two things combined is how we maintain and build muscle mass. So, having the motivation to work out on your journey and do some strength training, make sure that you're eating enough. Those are really important factors, and eating as little as possible or the least amount of calories is actually not the goal.
Right. And so that I think that's where it gets confusing for us, because how Justy lost her weight was by going off of her hunger scale, her hunger, 1 to 10, and eating until full, not or eating until satisfied, not full. And so I know she struggles with, I'm gonna speak for you for a second, Justy, but she struggles with eating to a calorie number versus like I'm just not hungry right now, or I'm not feeling it, or like I'm just going to go to bed because I don't want to get hungry later, or whatever. I don't want the hunger to strike later at night because it hits both of us typically later at night. So I know that she struggles there because she has always just eaten according to what her body feels. But then at the same time, if you're trying to build muscle and lose fat, I know that you have to feed it. So it's kind of like I think we get lost in that like matrix of like which is right. I'm not hungry, so I shouldn't eat, or do I need to meet this number?
Yeah, that is absolutely my issue, and it was for a long time, is that I don't eat unless I'm hungry. I don't eat until I'm full, or I don't feel full. I feel satisfied. So, if I'm going through a day and I'm just not hungry that day, I'm not going to hit my whatever calorie range, 1,800, whatever it is. But then maybe 2 days later, I might just be hungry that day. A lot of hormones play into it and just feel like I'm eating all day. But at the end of the week, it's pretty balanced. But I also want to build muscle and I want to grow my muscles. I just really feel like I want to be muscular. So, I know I need to eat more, but I'm just not hungry. So it's like it's like a big circle, right?
So I think my take on this is going to be an unpopular opinion. Like maybe if you asked other dietitians, or especially if you asked other like personal trainers, a lot of people would disagree with me on this. But I actually think, Justy, the way you have done it is more desirable than the strict tracking. I think
Yeah.
we get lost and
Thank
overwhelmed
you.
with the tracking. At one point before going on Manjaro, when I was struggling with that bit of regain, I was working with a coach myself to like do the body comp changes. And I, for the record, anyone who follows me knows I hate tracking. Like I don't enjoy it. It's not realistic for me.
Eat
It
it.
makes
Yeah,
it makes me
we hate it too.
obsessive. So at the time though, I was like, you know what? I'm willing to put, my frustration with tracking aside and give this a try. Like I'm willing to do anything because I'm regaining. I don't have the body comp I want. So I was working with a coach who was, which I have mixed feelings because coaches really shouldn't be giving, they can technically give macros, but they're not always the best people to be giving macros. So that's another conversation for another time. But I was like, you know what? Even, as a dietitian, I need some support. I need some accountability. I like this person. She's done great work herself. And this person, if anyone remembers me working with her, I'm not going to put her by name, love her. Like as a person, as another person on this journey, like she has done like amazing. But her method just didn't work for me because the macros, like I felt like were so hard to achieve. It was so high protein and carb and low fat. It was really hard for me to eat in a way that was satisfying. And I was always like overly stuffed and I wasn't hitting my goals anyways. Which is funny because when I was on Manjaro, even though I struggled to eat enough, I didn't track even one thing. And that was when I had the best body comp results. And it's because I was consistent and I focused pretty heavily on I didn't focus on numbers at all with my eating. I focused on how I felt. I made sure everything was protein first and that I was having a decent amount of carb. I wasn't even really focusing on complex carb. I was just focusing on eating more balanced meals when I could and focusing on that protein first and really listening to my body. And that combined with the strength training, as well as being on this medication that helped me lose the fat I was struggling with and helping with insulin resistance and my hormones, it seemed to be like the magic combination for me. And granted, you do need to have good nutrition education, which I can touch on because I realize and acknowledge that my ability to choose a healthy option is maybe different than other people's because I have a degree in this. So I understand where it can be really overwhelming. The other thing I want to take note of, while I believe in so much of what Justy was saying of like listening to your body, eating when you're hungry, stopping before you're too full. I think people get confused because that is a philosophy of mine with me being an intuitive eating dietitian. I think the term intuitive eating gets skewed sometimes. I personally don't love the term intuitive eating for weight loss patients. I like the term intentional eating. Intuitive eating is its own philosophy, and a lot of dietitians be like, I'm an intuitive eating dietitian. Intuitive eating has never been meant for people who are trying to lose weight. The intuitive eating principles actually discourage intentional weight loss. So the idea with intuitive eating is you eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and if your body naturally loses, that's okay. And if your body naturally gains, that's okay too. It's what your body needs, which to an extent, I understand some of that. But for those of us struggling with obesity, we usually need some strategy there to make sure we're not just eating all the things because a lot of us don't really have that off button. There's a reason these GLP-1 medications work. It increases satiety and decreases hunger. And a lot of us need that because those who struggle with their weight tend to have increased hunger and decreased satiety. So I just want to put that in there too. I don't want anyone to listen to this and be like, oh, I should just intuitively eat and I'm going to gain muscle. Like, no, there's still strategy there. There's definitely still strategy there that we can touch on. But I often think the calorie piece and the macro piece the reason I don't think it works for most people is because it's overwhelming. Feels very diety for most people to be tracking and weighing and counting everything. And I know for me personally, that causes obsession, all or nothing, and actually leads to binges for me still. And I know that's true for a lot of people. Also, it's not like you were saying before, or what you had sent over to me, it's not always accurate because, if you're my fitness pal spits out a number for you, but it's 1,000 calories more than you've been eating for the last year, that's not going to get you to your goal either. So it can be very frustrating to know what to eat and then sticking to it, and if what you're sticking to is going to work anyways. So that's something that we can dive into also if you want, but I think that's the piece that gets really hard for people.
Yeah. And I know we have like Justy and I think do you know what your basal metabolic rate is, Justy?
Yeah, it was just under 1700, like 1690 or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and yours is way higher than mine. Mine was like just under 1500, like
Mhm.
1470, I want to say. So we're very, but she's also taller than me. Like we, our weight is similar. Justy is taller by a significant amount, like
Yeah, I'm almost
five or
5'6".
6 inches or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But our weight is within 10 pounds of each other. So I'm only like 10 pounds less than her, even though I'm much shorter than her. But my basal metabolic rate is like 1470 and she's like almost
And a
1700.
lot of that is probably from having weight loss surgery. So even,
Mhm.
and this is where it can be hard for people because even if, your in-body scan is saying it's like 1470, again, let's just say hypothetically you're someone who's just coming off that first year or two, like even if that's what your body technically should be able to burn at rest, if you've still only been eating 800 calories for the last year or 1,000 calories, that is still an increase to what your body has been doing. So that's where it can be really tricky to keep losing weight when we've eaten in such a restrictive way for so long.
And what I
Mhm.
thought was interesting with that body scan that I have, it's around, we'll just say 1650 for round numbers, but that's typically when I track my food, that's how much I eat. Is around 1600 calories, maybe 17, sometimes 18, but really closer to 16. And I work out 5 days a week and I do hard workouts. And that for the last year, that has caused me to gain weight, but also gain the 12 pounds of muscle. So I feel like that works well for me. A lot of personal trainers or that sort of thing, it's like, oh, that's the minimum you need to eat. And then you need to eat a little bit more of that, blah, blah, blah. For me, that doesn't work. For me, eating right at that seems to be working, doing what I wanted to do for my body. And so,
And that's where it's when it comes to calorie counting and macro counting, like
mhm,
I can sit here as a dietitian and based on measurements or whatever, I can come up with a pretty decent like calorie and macro goal. I don't
mhm,
do that for any of my clients. I can't,
yeah.
I'm capable of it. It's usually not what works, again, for
Mhm.
multiple reasons. Everyone's bodies have been through different things with weight loss and weight gain, the way our metabolism is actually running. But two, the consistency factor. Are we
Mhm.
actually weighing everything to the gram? Do we want
Right.
to be doing that? Does that cause obsession? Does that cause us to be calculating everything, in our diet? Does that cause us to go off the rails on the weekends or at night? So a lot of times what I see with my clients who come to me is they have this like calorie macro plan or whatever, they stick to it all day till 4 p.m. and then come, after kids go to bed and later or whatever, it's like rummaging through the cabinets and it's this binging thing. And that's not because
That
people.
is exactly that is exactly had been my history with calorie counting and that sort of thing is I can stick to it, stick to it, stick to it. But then it's obsessive and I start saying I can have and I can't have. And when my mind goes into can and can't, then I battle all day, battle, 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 battle.
I'm
But when I
exactly
go
like
into
you.
saying, hey, when I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this. When I'm hungry, if I'm hungry before 4 or 5 hours, I know it's probably in my head, so I'm just gonna wait. And if I'm hungry at 8 o'clock at night, I'm just gonna have some tea and go to bed, and I'll fulfill that hunger in the morning. Like that's just kind of what I've learned over the years. But
Mhm.
for me, and Steph and I were said, oh, we're gonna track, but we haven't. And I send her my plan though in the morning, like, hey, I'm eating this,
Yeah.
this, and this. But I cannot get myself into that calorie counting.
And there
Just
are some people who, I will say, there are the select few who thrive in that type of
yeah.
behavior. I am not one of them. And most of my
Mhm.
clients and most of the people I work with are not either, because the majority of people don't do real well with that. Some
Mhm.
people do, some people like live by their food scale. That is just not me. And
Mm-mm.
I know
Mhm.
for myself, again, just like you, Jackie, if it's an I can't, as soon as I feel like I can't, I get anxious and then I overthink it and then I want food even more. So for
Mhm.
me personally, I always, and I've been like this even since beginning of weight loss surgery. I need a bedtime snack. If I do not have a bedtime snack, it's
Mhm.
harder for me to sleep. I overthink food, like trying to go to bed. So almost every night before bed, my go-to snack, at least, and this is how I know it's true hunger and not just me like wanting to rummage through the cabinet, is by like 9 at night, especially if I eat dinner around, 5 or 6, by 9 at night, yeah, I could just go to bed. But for me personally, I've always done better with a snack, especially now that I don't really get a night. I'm up all night too.
Mhm.
A lot of the times especially before the baby, like my nighttime snack would be a scrambled egg with cheese. Like I was hungry, like I wanted food.
Yeah.
Or it would be like right now, my go-to is usually plain Greek yogurt with Catalina Crunch. Love that. Like it's like, okay, like I'm making a good choice because I'm hungry. It's not like I'm just sitting here picking at this, that, and the other.
It's not a bowl of ice cream. It's not, you know, a sleeve of Oreo cookies.
Actually, I talked about this recently. One of the things, it's funny. I used to get real bad dumping syndrome from ice cream prior to being pregnant. When I was pregnant, I actually was able to eat ice cream, and I can still eat it now without getting sick. So rather than telling myself this postpartum weight loss journey, no, you can't have any ice cream. A couple nights a week, I do let myself have some ice cream. It's not a whole bowl. It's not even, it's honestly not even a full serving. It's usually a few bites and then I'm good. But if I told myself no, I would obsess over it and probably binge on something else. So like I said, I've lost 25 pounds so far. It's slower than I'd like. I created a whole post on this. Like, could I lose more weight quicker right now if I cut out all sweets and all ice cream? Probably. But is that
you also cut out all your happiness too?
Cut out all my happiness, and I'd way rather let myself have it. Literally is probably a quarter cup or less when I have it. I'd rather let myself have that quarter cup of ice cream a couple times a week than to, you know, have that all or nothing binge mentality anyways. Even if that means losing a little bit slower right now.
The binging for me, I will get to a certain point in the month, and I think it is hormonal. I was telling Steph this. I really feel like with this perimenopause, my hormones are kind of crazy. But I will have a day, and it's funny because it's usually 2 days before my cycle starts, where I just want to eat everything. I just want food. I want pizza. I want all the food, right? I want potato chips. And you know what? I have it. That one day, it's what my body needs, it's what my mind needs, it's what my anxiety needs, and I just do it. But I also I also know that it's not going to continue. I know that it's a very controlled thing. It's something I'm agreeing with myself, and that's it. And we keep on keeping on.
And that's beautiful because, and it's not necessarily like a cheat day. You're reacting to what your body wants and needs on those days. I have another post on this, which is shocking. Like I had a post a while back where I said, like, you know what happens if you have 1 or 2 off days of eating? Literally nothing.
Nothing.
Literally nothing. It's when it spirals into that all or nothing, start again Monday mentality where you're super strict and then it goes back to that. If you have a day like that here or there, it doesn't matter, which is the exact reason my quarter cup of ice cream here or there really doesn't matter. It's what we do most of the time that's going to matter the most.
Right.
So kind of circling back to, you know, well, how do I know what I'm doing is right for gaining muscle? You absolutely. So the best way to see if what you're doing is working is to look at that in-body scan. If you're just looking at weight loss, look at the scale. So how do you know you're in a deficit? Well, you'll be losing weight. If what you're doing is not resulting in weight loss, then you're probably not in a deficit. Again, is that even your goal though? Because the other thing I see all the time is people will say, well, Jamie, I want to build muscle. But then the scale goes up and they panic.
Right.
Well, what do you think's going to happen if you gain muscle? Hopefully, eventually you'll lose some of that fat too, but you have to be okay with seeing the number go up if you want to gain muscle. The key piece there is gain. But if your goal is strictly to lose weight, if you're not you're not going to see weight loss if you're not in a deficit. So maybe you are eating a bit more, and you can adjust you can achieve a calorie deficit without decreasing the volume of food. So, you know, if you focus on, I always tell my clients, focus less on what you're taking away and more on what you're adding. So don't focus on restricting. Don't focus on, oh, I can never have the cookie or the ice cream or whatever. What can you add to each meal or each snack to make it more nutritious? So how can I add protein? How can I add fiber? How can I add veggies? How can I add a fruit? If you're focusing on adding those nutrient dense food options, like I just listed, that are going to be better at keeping you fuller longer and lower in calories naturally anyways, you're going to find that you're snacking or binging less. So don't focus on, oh, I can't have mashed potatoes with dinner because it's a carb with lots of fat. Focus, okay, I'm gonna have a little bit of mashed potatoes, but how can I add more protein and add more veggies? Focus on adding more of those good things and less of the things that tend to self-sabotage. And when it comes to building muscle, just, you know, to quickly touch on that too, usually what you're going to want to do is make sure that having, and this is where it can seem counterproductive, but about within an hour before working out, you really want to have some carbs in your diet. I know carbs can be big and scary, but having even the more refined carbs, a simple sugar before a workout is going to help your muscles fill up with the glucose or the glycogen that it needs in order to sustain that workout. So I tell my clients, especially if like eating before a workout hurts your stomach, have a date or two. Little dates have lots of sugar. Having a little bit of fruit, especially one that's not super high in fiber, like half a banana or a banana before your workout. Get some carbs in about an hour before. And then within an hour after, honestly, focus more on a full meal. You want carbs and protein afterwards, but honestly, a well-balanced meal is really good. So focus on, again, the protein, the fiber, the carbs afterwards. If you're focusing on that, you're keeping yourself full consistently in between meals. You're consistently getting more protein in, focusing on those really good habits and diligently strength training, which I do recommend if you're able to work with a trainer. Don't let your trainer give you macros. Don't let your trainer give you a meal plan, but work with a trainer on what they specialize in, which is training. You're probably going to see more progress. Because a lot of the times I see people who will go to the gym, and it's great that they're in the gym 5 days a week, but if they don't have a plan that has strategy behind it, it's going to be very hard to gain the muscle that you're looking to also.
And that's why Steph and I tend to do, at least myself, I tend to do classes because it's led by a personal trainer. I'm actually also getting my certification currently,
Awesome.
but it's led by a personal trainer, and I'm competitive with other people. When I go to the gym by myself, even if I have a plan, I'm a lollygagger. And so if I have a personal trainer with me or I'm in a group fitness class, I also teach body pump, then I'm going to like get the best workout out of it for sure.
100%.
Yes.
And so another statistic that I love that I share all the time is people who have support and accountability are 85% more likely to hit their goals. There's a reason I don't work out at home even though I could. It's because halfway through I'm sitting on my floor scrolling on my phone. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. So
taking pictures. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. My CrossFit gym also, I've been there since 2020. After gyms opened back up during the pandemic, I joined, and part of why I joined is because I had left my full-time job to run my business full-time. So at that point I was full-time, like by myself in the house. And I'm like, okay, I need like a better routine. I need some more socialization. And I had a couple of clients who had done CrossFit and loved it. So my CrossFit gym is actually no longer an official CrossFit box. They do CrossFit style workouts, but my gym truly is very unique because it's more customized personal training. A lot of traditional CrossFit gyms are notorious for injuries, so you just want to watch out for that. Our gym is very diligent on making sure that doesn't happen. So you do like strength assessments with a trainer. Everyone gets matched with a personal trainer who customizes your programming. So what happens is we'll go into class. There's always a warm up, a strength training period, and then some kind of metcom or like HIIT workout. And even though we're on the same time structures, everyone's plans are customized to them based on their needs, abilities, limitations, and like progression. So my workouts are way scaled back compared to what they were last year, just coming out of pregnancy and rebuilding that muscle. But for me personally, not only has that been really helpful for actually achieving my goal, I have the accountability of my trainer. He'll text me all the time and be like, hey, I know you're probably really tired, but if you can just make it in for even, 20 minutes today to get a quick bike ride in, like that's good enough. Like that in itself is really helpful. And for me also, I needed the socialization part. I wanted to go in and be able to chit chat with my friends. Like, so for me, finding a community of people at the gym was really important versus just going to use the elliptical at the local gym. So when I go there, there's small classes, everyone knows each other. You get to, I bring my coffee and sip on my coffee while I'm doing my strength training before I switch to water and do the metcom. Like drink my coffee, do a couple reps, talk to my neighbor because I like to do that. And it helps my mood too. So that also for me has been a beautiful fit because it's kept me consistent. So there's all these factors because at the end of the day, if you're not consistent, you're not going to be building that muscle anyways.
Right, for sure. For sure.
Agreed.
Now, I know that you've only got about 5 minutes left before you have to get off of here. So I really think that this was a lot of great information. I honestly feel like we could talk for hours, and maybe we should. I know I have a subject in my head that I'd love to talk to you about in the future, but why don't you tell us like what you do, what you offer, how people can reach out to you. That way, you know, you can help further everybody's education.
Totally. Thank you. And before I do that, just to wrap up, was there anything on today's topic with body comp, scales, or understanding how to eat to train that I didn't answer? I want to make sure that I fully answered the questions you guys wanted me to.
Yeah, I think yes. I would personally like to get a little bit more deep dive at some point. Maybe we can do another one on like actual food and how to transition from doing a lot of a lot of bariatric patients that I know do a lot of supplements and packaged foods and that sort of thing to get their packed in protein. How do you transition into more whole food type of thing? I think that would be an interesting subject. That's what was in my head.
We'll need a follow-up episode because I could talk about that one for like
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's funny. Bariatric patients, we love to eat, our protein bars, but are afraid to eat a slice of bread. And getting over that to have some more whole foods is going to be helpful. So for sure.
Yeah, and I noticed you post about that quite a bit. Like I've seen some of your like top toasts that you make. I'm like, that looks so good. And yes, you can eat that. It's like, yes, I cannot eat and I can't eat. Totally like got to take those out of the
I
vocabulary.
love doing like avocado toast with like protein on top, or I'll do like cottage cheese toast. Like I get real creative, and I always get asked, "What kind of bread is that?" And I'm like,
bread.
Yeah, it's
Sourdough.
sourdough from the grocery store, whatever Stop and Shop had on sale. Like it's not special.
Right.
It's bread,
Right.
and people think it's got to be some kind of like keto, low carb, and it's like no. So we can definitely dive into that. But in the meantime, if anyone does have follow-up questions, you can always reach out. I'm on social media at the Sleeve Dietitian. There's no C in dietitian, so if you're looking for me, it's spelled with 2 T's. You can find me at www.thesleevedietitian.com. I would really encourage you all to check out my website. I have all my resources there, my programs, including my tribe membership, which is my most popular program that we have. It's a membership that is a combination of self-paced video modules where I teach you my approach to nutrition after weight loss surgery. We have hundreds of recipes. I actually have hundreds of workout videos in there from personal trainers. And probably the best part about it is the live virtual calendar. So every month we have upwards of 40 live support groups led by both peer and professional support group leaders. We cover topics like regain, pre-op, newly post-op, support for exercise. We have even support groups for people who are neurodivergent and need help with habit planning. Like we have some very niche conversations. So we have tons and tons of support groups. We've got emotional eating and body dysmorphia groups led by therapists. So tons and tons of support there. And I actually am having the best sale of the year for that program coming up this week on the 15th. It's our early Black Friday sale. So if you are interested in joining, I would really encourage you to check it out. But yeah, anything I offer in terms of resources and support can be found on my website. And you can always reach me via email. If there's something someone wants to reach out personally and ask, I'm always available.
Okay. And we will put all of Jamie's info in the show notes here as well. And we will reiterate the Black Friday sale. But if it's post the Black Friday sale, if you watch this 6 months later, we'll also post a code in there for our listeners too for still a little savings. But if you want that good savings, you got to get the Black Friday sale.
Yeah. So thank you again for having me.
All right.
Great
Yes, thank you so much.
conversation.
And I think our wheels are spinning, so we definitely are gonna bring you back. But at the rate that it took us to get this one scheduled, it'll be probably next summer. But
We'll
yeah,
try.
we're busy women, 3 busy women, so that's what it takes to get us all together. But I appreciate it so much. I just appreciate you and everything that you offer to the community, and I knew that you were the person we needed for this conversation. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. We'll talk to everyone next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.